4, 3, 2.
Welcome. We're going to be discussing the Saint Laurent show. It's one of our last panel discussions, and what an exciting one to be talking about because it's obviously Eddie Simone's debut. And what a wonderful panel I have. I have Montano, I have Harriet Walker, I have Mimma Viglezio, and I have Camilla Morton. My first hurdle of pronouncing your surname is complete, so
well done.
all downhill from
Quite well.
So, is everyone looking forward to the show? What's everyone?
Well, I think the anticipation is huge about what he's going to do here this evening, because that we've had Dior a few days ago, so now this one's had quite a big drum roll of a build-up, and nobody's seen anything. You've got to catch a glimpse of Raf in July, but he did close doors to buyers with his first collection, so I think now he's got to put on the runway his vision and explain why he's changed the name, what he's going to do, and how he's going to shift it around.
Mm-hmm. I think he's built it up quite well by sending out a few photographs and not showing the collection, and then some buyers told about that a little bit, but then launching the new website this weekend. I mean, he helped to build up to the mystery.
Absolutely. It's difficult too because he has such a visual reputation.
Yeah.
It's such a kind of conspicuous look that is associated with his days at Dior one as well. So it does tie in with the Yves Saint Laurent handwriting, I guess, but you don't want to make assumptions, do you?
No.
It's interesting about the male thing, because it does look quite male so far. But I love the fact that he's rebranded the whole thing, but it does set up a drum roll, and that's why it's exciting.
I'm a bit in shock about the black and white.
Yeah.
I don't see Saint Laurent black and white.
It's true, you don't, do you?
Yet it's quite beautiful. But
Well, maybe he's going to allow that to build, who knows?
yeah,
Because it means that he can really bring it back as a bang later, because he's thinking long term.
So you're expecting a colourful
He's got to do
collection?
it twice a year. He has to think of, he has to stagger the surprise, perhaps.
I think he's been waiting his whole career for tonight. When he was made creative
So stressful.
No, I know, but
I
he was
love
made
it.
creative director in '99 of this place, and he was the chosen one. He was the one that Mr. Saint Laurent Berger anointed as the successor. Then there was the sale, and Alba went off to Norm Van, and then they got in the House of Gucci, and then there was Tom, then there was Stefano, and I think it would have been a very interesting story if he'd gone there in '99, and actually it's almost like he's mirroring Carl's career now a bit, isn't it? Because he went off, had his wilderness years being a photographer, and now he's starting at Saint Laurent at the same age around abouts that Carl was when he started at Chanel. So he's coming to it with life experience rather than Saint Laurent in his 20s when he got Dior.
And he's had a few years off. I think that's really easy to forget because obviously he made such an impact with the Dior Homme, but he's been out of sort of the fashion game apart from doing his photography for a while. Yeah, exactly.
But I think it was more what he did I preferred his Saint Laurent men's collections to his Dior Homme collections. I thought he was really strong. Like he really shifted menswear around and shook it up when he was there.
Well, he did it for Dior as well. I mean,
but it was the bang.
Going down in history, that's what he did.
But I think I know that.
Look at that.
It's him. He's dressing himself.
It's quite Dior.
A bit strange because it seems so sort of colloquial now. It seems so obvious, but at the time you
but
forget.
that's how successful it was. I mean, that look was really incredible for menswear. That kind of thing we're used to with women's wear. But for menswear to have such a changed silhouette, I don't think that, but a changed body type. He actually influenced the way men
It's why
Carl it went from the big male model to suddenly the skinny guy. The guys have never had that kind of pressure before.
People, including Carl, lost kilos because they wanted to be able to wear them.
How influential is that?
But when you say he's dressing himself, it's quite interesting because that's why I just can't imagine what he's going to do for women.
But then
I just cannot.
It's quite interesting. I'm excited, but that's sort of what Yves Saint Laurent did. I mean, he took elements from men's wardrobes, from his own wardrobe. He was always in quite a narrow suit in the early days, wasn't he? And then he did it for women. So it might work very well if he still is dressing himself. That might not be a bad thing.
That's right.
I'm interested in this idea of gender because I think it's very natural for us to say, he's a men's designer moving on into women's wear in the same way that a lot of people do for Raf Simons. But is that kind of a very much a sign of the times? Like the way people dress, it isn't so separated by gender anymore.
No. But again, that's happening a lot. I mean, it's happening in London. People like J.W. Anderson, James Long, kind of moving across. I don't know whether it's a a social trend, whether it's a commercial trend, that actually the pieces that are selling are like menswear. They're classics, they're staples, they're kind of basics in a way, however brilliantly they're made. There's something you can return to again and again, and that's again part of what's quite important at Yves Saint Laurent, I think.
Or do you think that it's when people go and study, when they learn to become tailors, when they're on Savile Row, there's a better training for menswear designers, so they come out with more skills. You have more time spent on the patterns, on the grain, on how to get the proportions right, and maybe...
What was his training?
He started in tailoring.
He did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's also, there's a really great article on Charlie Porter's blog, and he wrote about Raf's first collection at Dior, and he said that...
The couture or the ready-to-wear?
The
ready-to-wear.
And he said there was something about it that seemed, it wasn't quite relevant, and that was something that was so fabulous about his menswear, that it always felt sort of so wearable and so, just completely relevant, and like they could just walk off the catwalk onto a man's body. And I think that's something that's interesting about women's wear, is it's never got to that point of feeling completely relevant to every woman in the way that fantastic menswear has. And I think maybe that's something we might start to see to change with Eddie.
Well, Eddie did it with your own for women, in a way, paradoxically. I mean, we all wanted one of those suits, and the stars.
I mean, how classics like Patti Smith.
I can't wait to have a Saint Laurent by Hedi Slimane tuxedo.
I mean,
I'm sure it's going to be the best the best tux ever.
But do you think this will mark just a kind of a complete revolution in sort of, not just in Paris, but in sort of clothing for women, taking away this kind of idea of romance and femininity and kind of these big floral sort of
I don't think that's the case, because I think if you look at a lot of the shows this season, what designers have been doing is blending that sort of hyper feminine with something a bit more edgy.
Absolutely.
Or not necessarily
even Lanvin did it, which was quite extraordinary.
And yesterday,
because from Albert, it's it's so girly.
That was the message at Prada as well. And at Versace, it was very much sort of sugar and spice.
That's interesting. I wonder if that's the designers following actually women as opposed to women following designers.
I think it definitely
because women have been doing that for years. Since I was a teenager, we'd love to wear like the guy's, the boyfriend's shirt or the guy's jacket,
or even just jeans
leather jacket.
Totally. I mean, that's the way again. I think it's about what women are buying.
They call it the boyfriend's.
Boyfriend jeans.
We always had it, haven't we?
We always did. Levi's 501s. They didn't come in men and women's format in the 80s, and the leather jacket and all the classics that are in wardrobes. They were always what's the word? Not transgender, but they were always
androgynous between the two at least. But I think there's a definite potential that women's wear designers might be less distracted perhaps by concept. Well, maybe not concept, but by themes, rather than working to this season it's romance, this season it's pastoral. It's more about this season it's a wardrobe. That could be what Hedi Slimane
That's quite
does.
intelligent, isn't it? There's a much more intentional.
I mean, you need to get people to buy, so that's quite a good tactic.
I don't think he really has that in mind tonight.
Maybe not.
This is his. He's
waiting
for this more.
Sorry, I took it back to the cash desk. I'm sorry.
No, but you're absolutely right. But I don't see Hedi going to bed last night and thinking, I'm going to sell this collection.
No, perhaps not.
He's thinking, how can
maybe I'm
I
wrong, but I can't wait to see the first tuxedo. Hopefully there is one. I can't see him doing skirts and dresses.
That's interesting, isn't it? I mean.
You should start placing bets. This is a good one. How do you make some money here?
What about colours like orange and pink?
But I think that's what's exciting about this kind of enigma that they've kept around it, and the fact that they really haven't let anything out. They've made these kind of big changes, like we all mentioned, the name change and the website overhaul. And
the store redesign already in process.
I want to return to talking a little bit about that name change, because we all kind of flagged it up at the start, but then we moved on. But that was it's an incredibly gutsy move in a way. And maybe you've advised sort of brands on sort of how to operate. And what did you think of the kind of the way he set his path up after being offered the position?
I don't know if I'm saying something true, but the French call Saint Laurent Saint Laurent. They don't say Yves Saint Laurent. And so for me, it's maybe that, like. I don't know. I mean, Hedi needed to do something immediately, and that was the easiest thing, to take the Eve away, to mark, because whatever happens, this will be one of the first of his legacies. It changed the name. We're discussing this. And that's the way the French call it. They call it Saint Laurent.
But
they never say YSL. I remember, at the beginning when people started to say YSL, in the States, a friend reminded me, I was like, YSL? We don't call it YSL. And then I started doing it too, because that's the way they were calling the beauty section. It's called YSL.
Yeah.
And so everybody says YSL, and he wants to go back to Saint Laurent. It's not YSL, it's not only the Cassandra logo, it's a name.
What's the reaction been in Paris? Has it been different to England? Because in England that seemed like a big deal.
Yeah.
But in France, was that reported as being a big deal?
What?
It's a very traditional country like France. The
A big
idea
deal, the name?
Yes.
I don't know, I live here. I don't know.
Right, okay.
Sorry.
I mean,
me
I
just
think-
making assumptions.
No, I don't know how.
I mean, I
You know
think
better.
it felt like it was arrogant at first, but
Oh, really?
actually, I think that people did think it was quite an arrogant sort of assumption to do. But I think actually it's also because Mr. Saint Laurent was his mentor, and he was obviously very, close to him, and he nurtured him and made his career and put him on the right footsteps. And I suppose when Mr. Yves Saint Laurent died, he wanted to keep Yves as the man and Saint Laurent as a brand.
But that's why the French, they call it Saint Laurent.
Yeah, exactly, because you have to have that differentiate. And I think also it's more respectful to his great mentor that he doesn't want to, be chasing after the ghost of the man that put him in this position. So he was going to leave him on a pedestal, but he wants to show this is how I'm going to bring it forward.
But I don't think it perhaps came, you mentioned kind of it did seem quite arrogant at first, and I think especially within the British press there was this kind of, wow, this is a huge overhaul, because it did feel kind of, with the name change and the logo change.
But also it's such a fabulous logo, why would you sort of
absolutely.
shimmy it around?
When was it changed from YSL? What was it called in the beginning? Saint Laurent Rive Gauche. But then at what point was it changed to Yves Saint Laurent?
Well, the house is Yves Saint Laurent.
When the beauty sort of started to dominate more.
Right. Wasn't it founded like Yves Saint Laurent, the brand?
It's listed as Yves Saint Laurent. It's Yves Saint Laurent.
It remains Yves Saint Laurent. The house is Yves Saint Laurent.
Yeah.
It's
But
just
the
the
brand-
ready
the
to
brand,
wear
yeah.
is Saint
I guess,
Laurent.
yes, that's what I mean.
And then
Paris.
But only in the logo.
Yes. It's interesting that they've rooted it again in Paris though, because the Rive Gauche location was so important to what he was doing, what Yves Saint Laurent was doing when he established everything in the late 50s, early 60s.
Still there, the store.
And that they did locate their store very far away from.
So maybe in a
from the
way,
other areas.
so maybe in a way, it's quite a traditional move.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe the shock is more just the fact that we live in a world full of hyperbole, and we like to make a big shock factor about everything because it makes better headlines. Because in fact, maybe it's very traditional to call it.
I think
It's
it is
also
sort
good.
of,
It's also a good
respectful.
PR thing. Let's
Of
face
course,
it. I mean, he
Absolutely.
needed something to be said immediately. And
Yes.
he wanted also, I guess, to take the attention away from the clothes. He wasn't ready. His first collection was immediate, and so changed the name, website, and whatever. I think it's good.
But also
PR.
it's a very immediate way of making it his era, not that he's just picking up from where Stefano left, or he's...
That I'm knowing Hedy, that's his biggest thing.
Yeah.
And I've read today that the new website will have only his fashion,
Only
only
his,
thing
none
that
of
he has
Stefano.
designed,
Yeah.
which is not much at the beginning. And everybody has an overlap, inevitably, and he just doesn't want that because it cannot be. You cannot have two people more different than Hedy and Stefano.
But I guess in this
Design,
world,
right?
you have to have a lot of conviction, and that's going to come with a big ego, and you need an ego to make it stand.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned Stefano, and I think in a way it's his last collection. I think he really did go out with such a bang, and I think he's almost kind of the forgotten one in this story because he was incredibly successful when he was there, and some of his collections were absolutely beautiful. And I think what has been so clever in a way about what Eddie's done is it's completely blown that out of everyone's minds. It's very much on what's going to happen, what's the new going to be, which is something very different to, I think it's always going to be naturally this way, to what happened with Raf, where there was so much kind of looking back.
Yeah. But I think it's easy to forget how diverse a lot of Stefano Pilati's collections for Yves Saint Laurent were. Some of them were very frothy, some of them were really kind of austere. You have the collection with the strawberries all over it, which was so sweet. And I think the season before that, it was all the automatons with the black bowl cuts.
Yes.
The difference between those was massive. I don't think he's given quite enough credit because.
But in his own way, was very Saint Laurent.
Yeah, absolutely. There was always a feel.
I mean, I'm a bit biased, but I loved it.
What do you think is his legacy for Saint Laurent?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, I wonder what would be lasting.
I think he took it back to Saint Laurent.
Exactly.
I think it was the differential.
But I think before it
That's
was Gucci Group doing Saint Laurent, and then it went back to Saint Laurent. And I think he put it into a very respectful place. But I think it's one of those, the king is dead, long live the king is dead, you know, and then you get a new one, long live the new king. I think fashion is very fickle and it always looks forward and it doesn't tend to look, we look back. I mean, Harriet, you must find it, I don't go to shows doing research on previous collections, I just dive in with a clean piece of paper, off you go. And I think these panels, they make you look back more than you would usually than if you just turn up with a ticket.
There are some designers, and I think one is Nicolas Ghesquière, Balenciaga, who always give you a hint. There's always like a sort of
a transition.
Feel of illusion. I'm very interested in that because I believe, and I think Stefano in a way did it as well. You know? There was always a reminder. Because otherwise,
I think the things where
there's no history.
Where he will linger on, I think, in the nicest possible way, is possibly the accessories. Because under him, the accessories were done so well, and they became real classic modern classics. So actually, you know, the bags and you know the tribute shoes.
It'll be like collector's items.
Kind of.
Do you think he will delete them from the collection?
Who knows? I
mean,
what
about
he'd be mad to.
Bag and you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Selling like
exactly.
It'd be crazy to get rid of that.
Yeah. Hold on to them, girls. Hold on to them.
We've kind of mentioned sort of new people taking over new houses and being deferential to the original designer. I do want to kind of mention this kind of Eddie versus Raf thing that I think has been sort of hugely blown out of proportion, but this kind of perhaps like created rivalry between the two of them. And do you think that there is? Do you think that's a reality, or do you think it's something that the press have just created?
I don't think there is. I mean, I don't know about the two men. I don't know if they're friends, enemies. I have no idea. I never met Raf. I don't know him, but. Yeah, it's a press thing. I mean, come on, it's good. It's
a great story.
They have a
I
great
mean, it's
story.
good to have a bit of healthy competition.
But remember when Susie, probably 3 years ago, wrote something Balenciaga, Givenchy, Nicolas and Riccardo, and she was giving all the similarities. And I remember Nicolas being so upset. And then she did it for a few seasons, so they were the two, you know...
pitted against each other.
Yeah, and they were the two master of modernity, or whatever, and now we have these two, and so it's a little bit less about Balenciaga and Givenchy, which probably are not very happy about. But you know, it's just to keep people's interest
like
high.
chess. Someone's playing chess.
The person I'd be interested to see if he was front row, well, apart from Mr. Berger, would be Karl Lagerfeld, because he was so supportive of Eddie at Dior, and he was so a friend to him while he was doing the photography, and they're quite similar in the way that they've come to houses later in life, and they, well, not later, but do you know what I mean, where Mr. Saint Laurent started, he was 21, whereas he's 44 now. But I wonder whether Karl will see him turn from being a friend to a rival now.
Because he's so hugely influenced by...
No, but Karl is beyond touch. But
he's a bartender, no?
Yeah, but there's...
I don't know, maybe it's not.
But also Karl and Yves Saint Laurent were quite rival at the beginning. I think it
I think it's very different when you're a protégé.
Yeah.
The relationship is very different.
For
if you're alongside someone at every stage, I can imagine, maybe with
I think Karl is sitting front row.
It would be difficult.
Well, there are a lot of designers who...
He has got the exclusive Chanel tomorrow morning.
Yeah, he's probably a bit busy.
He might be
doing
busy.
the last fittings,
I'm sure he's watching with interest.
Well,
with his cat.
Yeah, with Chopin.
But I think Lagerfeld is quite influenced by Hedi Slimane.
Yeah,
I find that interesting because
quite
a protégé to be influential to the actual one that they are the protégé of is unusual.
When the protégé starts to challenge its mentor, it's quite an interesting position to... It's sort of a bit of a shift of power.
But do you think this will... You mentioned Karl, but do you think this will kind of force other designers in Paris, or maybe not just in Paris, maybe sort of throughout fashion, to kind of up their game, reconsider what they're doing?
I think everybody's had to up their game this season because basically until this show, I mean until the Dior and Saint Laurent shows, everything's sort of, don't you think it's all been a little bit going through the motions until we get to this point, not to just sort of like dismiss 3 weeks worth of stuff, but this has been the hook of the whole season. So
we had a taste, I think, in Milan of Jill Sanders' return at her own label, and there was some of that in anticipation of what will she do in the way that no one knows before the show what Hedi Slimane is going to do. And actually what she did do was sort of counterintuitive by going by what she'd done previously. But it made a lot of sense within the label. It made a lot of sense given what Raf had done at the label as well. So actually it was quite logical. So maybe we're about to see something that is just very, very logical.
I don't know what you think, but looking at those pictures, there's huge amount of sex going on there. Which was never in Stefano's world.
No.
It was the opposite. I mean, it was criticized because women were never showing flesh, and they were too covered. It was too
He did nuns once.
priestly, and he did nuns, and he said, "For me, women are up there on the pedestal, and here, I don't know
Here
if
they're in the
people
bed."
can see. There's a lot of sex going on.
Which is interesting, especially because
Black
people
and
make
white,
such
by
a
the
fuss of Eddie being a man's designer, and it's as if people presume that like the femininity is just going to be completely zapped out of clothing because he's sort of cut his teeth in menswear. So I think it would be interesting if he went with something that was feminine and sensual.
But there's a difference between feminine and sort of raw sex, isn't there?
Yeah.
And
That's
I think you've got
very
to strike
different.
a balance. I think Yves Saint Laurent himself was about sort of beautifying women, but also I think he said fashion was supposed to reassure them as well. So I don't know how reassuring it is standing topless with just a cape on.
That's quite well said.
Are there any images in yet?
No,
or
we're still waiting on images.
But that's a gay model as well.
They're beautiful
Reyes doesn't like
but,
men, so she's not being submissive to a man. So that gives it the edge, I suppose, doesn't it?
She's very androgynous.
Oh, I wasn't thinking of being submissive. I was
Right.
thinking about getting cold.
We're practical as English girls, aren't we?
But what do you think of the sort of PR game that they played? Kind of this doing the buyers only. Do you think that was a really smart move to kind of keep all the? Because we all said it's not become about the clothes, and I think if you read all the articles and all the press surrounding his appointment, it was just all been focused on kind of the appointment and the name change and the website. And by doing a buyers only, do you think he's almost?
I think if he hadn't done the private appointments, it might have become more about the clothes because you would have seen what he'd done for menswear at the label, and everyone would just assume that what he'd done there would be what he would do for women's wear, and that's not a really fair assumption to make at this point. So maybe it's good that he kept quite a lot
He
of it
wanted
back.
to keep the momentum on this show. And if you see a pre-collection before, I mean, Raf had couture before, not a pre-collection. So, it was his first stage. Hedy had pre-collection, and I think he was right. And then what? You spoil like the surprise with the pre-collection.
I also think
it was clever.
I think it was a good idea. I would have shown, I mean, I wasn't doing it, thank God, but I would have shown it to the buyers first because they've all got stores within the stores. They're all committed to Saint Laurent. It's not like a new little startup designer that they're going to just drop in. They've already committed to the space in the shops. And I think if he comes in and says, I've changed the name, I've changed everything, I'm going to let you know in October, I'd like to see what on earth was about to happen. I think it was more an exercise to reassure the buyers, bear with me, this is a really clever move that we're doing, it's going to be a very strong new thing. But also I think if he'd shown it in a pre-collection or as a sort of a very commercial sort of diluted version, it would have become more about Eddie the man and Eddie as a profile and not Saint Laurent.
But
the
do you
clothes.
not think it's become about Eddie the man, like that
No,
very kind of the black and white, it's very true to his photograph?
A little bit.
It's about him, but he's trying to pull it back to Saint Laurent. He's playing clever game. I think he's playing quite a clever game.
He's playing clever game too, but I do think that it's a tiny bit.
Oh no, he's being a little bit. It's all on his
and he's
terms.
being his own self,
But
He's
do you think-
disappeared, you don't see him, he's in LA, he's in Paris. What is he doing? I mean, his emails, all emails, address, whatever, disappeared. You don't know how to find him. It's very heavy.
Yeah.
You mentioned the LA thing. I think that's really interesting that he kind of moved to the studio and has been very kind of firm in the arrangement he wants. Do you think that was a smart move for him, or do you think it's going to... Because I think there is this kind of lingering sense of people thinking, is he getting a bit too big for his boots, like moving to LA, changing the name? Do you think...
Apparently the studio will not move completely to LA.
No, there's still...
But it's not going to move back to Paris.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be...
Well, the proof will be in the pudding.
I think Saint Laurent is the essence of Paris, so it's weird, but it's very difficult to judge before we've seen. Maybe it's going to be, I don't know.
Yeah, completely.
It's weird though. I was surprised.
I want to talk a little bit, as we wait for images, on the codes of the house, because this is something we talked about in designers that have been really successful. Someone like Albert or Galliano Dior is kind of tapping into this idea of the codes of the house and what that symbolises. What do you think are the codes of Yves Saint Laurent?
Well, obviously, the smoking, the tuxedo is an obvious one that everybody links to because of the cut and the line and that classic photo changing the sort of silhouette of what women want to do.
Safari.
Yeah, there's safari, Marrakesh, colour,
Russia.
And I see pink and orange because the first colors of the first store, the famous logo of Rive Gauche, was pink and orange.
That's
and
right.
it was very, le smoking black or white, and then the evening kaftan, right?
Yeah. It was always so rich.
I see a lot of pink.
I see sort of more sort of burgundy opium advert time.
Right, that's interesting what we're all picking up on, because it's what affected you as a teenager when you're really sort of wide-eyed. I mean, I always remember the shows in the 80s, and he used to use a lot of black girls. And they were always really wealthy looking. And he was the first, and that's what I always remember, because I never saw black models on the catwalk. And they were so strident, and they were so gorgeous, and they looked very expensive. And it wasn't a woman that I knew when I was 19. It was in the 80s in London, that kind of woman. And I didn't see anything else like that. They were so tough, weren't they? Decadent and tough, and they were so self-assured. They were like Helmut Newton women. They were
they were
sexy,
and
they owned it, and
the
epitome of the 80s. And of course, opium, Jerry Hall, and all of the. I mean, I was wearing opium at sort of 13. What was I doing, smelling of opium at 13 years old? I don't know, but
I mean, my mum always wore Saint Laurent Rive Gauche, and I just so remember thinking that was the most outrageously glamorous thing in the entire world. So it's always sort of been that symbol of like, gosh.
It was always nighttime in Yves Saint Laurent world. It was never daytime.
But who's the woman? Because you've all mentioned kind of iconic moments. We mentioned the smoking. We've mentioned like that kind of sexes. But who's the Yves Saint Laurent woman? Because I think it's easier to do something like for Lanvin or Dior.
I think she's by default quite practical, because I think that a lot of the Yves Saint Laurent clothes were about freeing women up. Still keeping them incredibly glamorous, elegant, very sexy, but meaning that they could walk down the street very easily. In that way, I think he's quite like Chanel. In that way, it's sort of affluence made for real life. So I think she's a real person.
I think Saint Laurent women have fabulous lives. They're like Bianca Jagger at her wedding, Catherine Deneuve. It's these women, and you just think, you're having a good life. I'd like that like that. It's a fabulous life.
They're saying, it's almost all black.
Almost all black.
Well,
we've got the first few images in. We haven't got them all yet.
Ooh, let's start.
Sorry, we need to.
We can't race through too fast.
Let's not.
God,
can you make it bigger?
Yeah, and Neil, can we log in? I think maybe that's why it's small.
Neil?
That
or I'm gonna have to. No, I don't know if that is just the size that it's coming.
Is it only that size? Oh, good Lord.
Sorry?
He's sending us little low pixel images.
No one's getting their images in, so I don't know if he's been very kind of shut down with.
Oh, what? He's only letting those are from him, not.
No, they are from Now Fashion, but I don't know if he's kind of.
But that's the only look you have for the moment.
But Star.com haven't got any images in either, so I don't know if he's being.
But it's funny to
everyone's just having too much fun. So.
To read the tweet, because they're commenting and saying, he has brought the real Saint Laurent back.
Lots of hats, lots of black.
What do you think of the opening look?
I think it's interesting that the two sort of like nail-biting shows in the season have opened with pantsuits, cigarette pantsuits. Look at those skinny legs. I mean, that's sort of a little bit how it was with the Dior Homme silhouette, and it's a very Saint Laurent shape. Not that I can actually see the top because it all blurs into the black background.
What's going on at the top? Is that a bow?
Yeah, it looks like
she's
got a white shirt and then
I
big
have
black
got a white shirt.
So there's again the feminine with the masculine.
Yeah, it is a suit.
It's kind of
is it a suit? It's not a shirt
in that way.
She's got a jacket and then a white shirt.
It's an element.
One with a waistcoat and one with a pink.
That's
a black bag.
But that looks, to me, it looks like there's a big bow and there's a bit of a frilly sleeve going on, which is, I think, a bit cartoonish. It's a cartoon of a black suit, kind of.
Yeah. You're working.
I am already on Saint Laurent.
You were tipped off.
I just didn't like to let it slip.
Should we go to the...
Ooh.
That is technically the second look. It's purpose 3. But
oh, is it? That's the second one.
Metallic.
Interesting.
First.
Looks like Bettina, doesn't it?
Looks like Nita Pallenberg to me.
Betty Couture.
And you can see kind of nods of what we were seeing.
The cowboy trend as well.
Yeah. And with the sheer as well, which you were kind of getting hints at in that.
Is that bronze?
Paillettes
sequins.
But again, it's this idea of the suits kind of redefine with the shirt.
Nice sharp
And
shoulders.
transparent chiffon shirt. We've seen transparent chiffon.
It's a Saint Laurent shoulder, isn't it? That
Yeah,
sharpness
it's really...
Yeah, although the boxiness, there seems to be a boxiness to the jackets, which is sort of out of keeping with what I think is normally.
I know, he's got rid of the tribute shoes straight away, look.
Hasn't he?
I mean,
Yeah,
the tribute shoes shout Stefano Pilati.
Someone tweeted before that they hadn't seen any bags on the runway, which is an interesting.
That is
Wow.
interesting.
We were
Oh,
talking
really?
about. I don't know if we'll get more later. I don't know what part of the show they tweeted that. They tweeted that from, but that's a really interesting based on what we were saying about this kind of.
But Raf only had about 4 or 5, although we did have quite a lot to think about. But let's not talk about anybody other than Saint Laurent now.
Yeah. I mean, it's still brave not having the accessories, because let's face it, that's how people buy into things, isn't it? Because everyone can, whatever your size, age, you can buy a handbag.
But I think them not being on the catwalk doesn't mean that they won't exist.
No, exactly. Maybe it's just a smart move, like
it's easier
exactly.
in the long run to just get them out into the shops.
Absolutely, but then not have them as a thing because everyone knows why they're there.
Exactly.
It doesn't look so cool with a bag, does it?
Yeah.
Neil, now fashion's running really slow. Can we have a bit of help? Is Neil there?
Yeah, we're meant to be hot off the press here.
Whoa, it wants us to log.
Yeah, pretty good.
I mean, I suppose also, if you think about YSL Beauty, the T-shirt club, like that is such their mega seller. I mean, that.
I know, but that was smart of them to do. It was
like thousands a day. Yeah,
that's right. They were smart. They were
Yeah.
smart with hiring the lady Terra de Gunsberg.
Yeah.
Because it's whoever was there at the time. They happened to hire. Being a makeup artist, who always wants these contracts. You know, that's what we're all after. It's basically you're at the mercy of how smart and how maverick the people at the houses are with who they hire.
Yeah.
Because you know they don't know anybody from Adam half the time. So the fact that they chose this brilliant woman who created such an iconic product.
Yeah. I mean,
the most iconic makeup product in the last 20 years. For
exactly.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah, she reinvented the wheel in a way.
Yeah, she really did, and it's. I mean, you can't even rip it. I mean, there are versions of it, but you basically every woman is programmed to get.
You can't start your day with
I've never actually owned one, which I think is
really?
No, it's really
great.
great.
Young.
I know, I need to.
You can live with that.
You're never too young for Touche Eclat.
I need to go get one. Yeah, you'll have to teach me the best.
So do you have any looks?
Yeah, this is the third look.
Oh, slowly but surely.
Yeah, they're coming. Now fashion's only people who got them, so it's interesting.
Is it a velvet hat?
I don't think it's velvet. I think it's the
I think it's just regular
What's
felt.
going on there?
But again, it's a white shirt with a huge black bow,
yeah.
and then the kind of the skinny. But it is very Durham, I think, which is nice to see him kind of. Because no one wants him to move away from that. I mean, everyone loved it. It was
I mean, a
incredible.
guy would look great in that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he?
But I think.
Yeah, you could see Brian Jones in that as much as you could see Kate Moss in that.
Totally.
I do wonder if we will come to a point. It sounds a bit kind of cliche to say, but where men and women will just share clothing. I know that's kind of already
done that
happening.
with Yves Saint Laurent before. I think was it Edition 24 or something, when they did basically the same collection for men and for women. I think they had slightly different fits, different darts, but they were essentially the same item. So that's a concept that's really in keeping with the label. I think that these things are transferable. That there aren't kind of gender labels. It's just about clothes that you can live in, very glamorously, albeit. You're still living in them. You're still doing stuff.
Wow.
That's a real nod to the house.
Is that a skirt or the white
I think it's
trousers?
all in one.
It's an all-in-one.
Yeah.
All-in-one suede safari dress thing, is it?
Yeah, it's a really that's very beautiful.
Pure Varushka, isn't it?
Is it Edie
Yeah.
Cameron?
Really
Yeah. Okay, so he's referencing the heritage.
To the hat as well.
Yeah. The hats are interesting though, because the hats remind me of, we were talking about Stefano Pilati doing the nuns, the big wimples that he did.
Yeah.
There's something of that in there, making a real statement sort of from the top down maybe.
Are you happy to see that he kind of made a very obvious, very kind of deferential, almost quite emotional nod to the house? Do you think that's...
I haven't seen enough to say.
Yeah,
honestly.
exactly, because it might just be the one nod.
The
I
one
mean,
nod.
total
for
nod,
sure,
then
that's a big
because it's
nod,
such a big nod.
Yeah.
She looks a
And
bit
it's from one of the
swamped to me.
It
best.
looks gorgeous.
Does it
Carry on.
Looks a bit swamped
The
with that,
fit is
hasn't it?
interesting, isn't it?
Freya, is that Freya?
No,
It's not Freya. Freya-like.
Ultra sexy.
Yeah. See, not to detract from that at all, but that's that is a look that you will see at the weekend done on the cheap. But that
was
is
about
a
to
brilliant
say that's a
version
very
of that
classic.
look.
It's a very exactly. It's very classic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a rock and roll gone. It's Patti Smith and Mapplethorpe
That's
going
more
out with
Saint
you know,
Laurent.
which is the same iconic look which you see. Which will always
that's
be cool.
not
It's
going
perennial
anywhere,
cool.
is it?
It's not going anywhere. 10 years, 20 years.
But it's this
That's
relevance
something-
idea again. I think that's something he did so well at Dior Homme. It's this idea you don't have to do. You said you will see that on the tube pretty much every evening, but in
the tube they won't be affording that beautiful
exactly,
cut of
but
trousers.
he's done it
It's
perfectly.
obviously luxury.
But that's exactly what women are wearing.
Yeah.
Want to wear.
Yeah, it's
it's
casual,
sort of
but it's in
sexy,
luxury
easy.
fabrics and
It's fantastic.
yeah, it's great. I mean, it is great.
Oh, that's lovely.
And that's very kind of Tom Ford days in a way.
It's funny, it's as if he was doing one look more heady and one look more Saint Laurent.
Yeah.
Am I?
He's kind of alternating.
It's reminding us
Yeah.
that he knows what he's doing, but then it's his own style. It's quite interesting what he's doing.
It is. It's a bit time machine, isn't it?
Did you notice? I mean, but
I think it's quite a deliberate thing that he's doing that.
nothing is by a mistake with Heady.
But the whole process has felt a bit like he's playing with it. You know, we mentioned before we came onto the stream, but this idea of completely changing the name of the house, changing the logo, and then you get to the venue and there was those huge YSL logos sort of
Cassandra's,
up there. So it's interesting that he is kind of. It's almost like he is toying.
Well, I suppose he's saying I'm making it modern, but I'm not forgetting the heritage.
He knows what he's doing, though. I think the fashion crowd love to sort of spot a reference, and it's a bit like Top Trumps so far.
That's the logo that sells.
Yeah.
Also, every piece of Touche Éclat has got the. I mean, that's the logo that makes his salary and everybody's salary. So I don't think he would be allowed to take it away completely, right?
I think he has gone in with a carte blanche, but I think he is establishing it's his control now, and he's going to touch on the past but push it forward.
But you say that like that's kind of you say that's like a natural thing to do, but it seems like an easy thing to do, but it's not always done well. Exactly.
No, I mean, I think
really
the person
forced
who's done it
face.
brilliantly is Karl Lagerfeld at Chanel. He's got such a sort of understanding of the codes that he can touch on it and then make his own. And then the Chanel woman, I think when you look at history, you'll say, oh, Coco Chanel was amazing because he's been so faithful to pushing her forward, and as much as it's actually he's been there longer than she will have,
It's so weird, isn't it? Yeah.
Do we have more? See, and then we go back to the.
It's pretty commercial, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really
It is
very
much
commercial.
clever.
It's more
Very
commercial
clever.
than I would imagine, actually.
He knows that it's a good idea to put everybody in a white shirt.
And that is a shirt. She's not naked. I was going to look to you guys at the end. There's a ruffle shirt.
It's an interesting combination of things. I can't remember ever
What
seeing a pant with a
fabrics
bow
is
with a
he
hat.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there.
There's a lot going on,
But also
yeah.
that blazer is actually quite preppy, which I'm
Yeah.
surprised by.
There's so many.
What fabric
There's
is
an
it?
accessibility
Can
to
you
it.
see?
I can't tell. I don't know whether it's the lighting on the picture. I don't think it's velvet, but
I think it might be a velvet that jacket,
looks
but it
kinda
isn't
like
really
velvet,
hard to
but
see.
we don't
It's
know.
like-
velvet for summer is
little
interesting if that's
Mm.
what
Yeah.
it's doing.
Well, that's one thing that's interesting is it's not particularly summery
No.
and striking, which is something we've seen across
Again
all the
and
different
again, yeah.
collections. And I think this
Well,
is
Prada had fur,
yeah.
so then again, men, women, winter,
I
summer,
wonder if that's because we're all so
whatever.
global, because
I think
everyone's
it's
travelling
Just
so
buy
much.
clothes.
Seasons for 20th century.
And if you think of the areas where luxury brands are selling well, you don't have the same kind of I think we're very kind of Europe centric in the way we think about seasons.
It's
You know,
true.
Black
Yeah.
for spring,
But
summer,
then,
but actually
yeah,
that's completely
exactly.
irrational.
Yeah.
Click on.
More?
And that safari
Okay,
reference
yeah.
coming through again.
That's pretty low key, isn't it? Somehow.
It
It
is.
really
Yeah.
is.
See,
It
that's
works
a
though.
perfect combination of Eddie.
But what's it
with
coming
Saint
out
Laurent,
to?
with
Is
that
it coming out
lacing.
to pumping rock music?
It's
or?
coming out to the music is Junior Kimbrough, which is edited by Daft Punk.
Right.
Right.
So something a bit
It's
less
But yeah, that's a total fusion of what we've seen
Completely.
Yeah.
and what we know is coming next, isn't
well,
it?
because it's exactly this look, but done in
In
a really
foxy
sexy
black leather.
Yeah.
I think he's
Anyway.
starting to fuse them together now, so maybe we're getting to the part of his story where he's...
There's a skirt coming out. Can we see it? I can
How
see
on
legs.
earth do you know that?
I can see legs.
I think it's a Bermuda short.
Oh, the shorts.
£10. Oh no, it's shorts. Okay.
It's quite nice
Still
actually
looking
going
at
through
the
it
£10.
slowly because you see him kind of toying with you.
Yeah.
You see him going, this is Saint Laurent, this is me.
From
this
here
is
it
Saint
looks
Laurent.
a little bit.
It's a shape that we're not used to. Heels, boxy shorts, and a boxy. We're not used to that at all, are we?
A boxy jacket with a sheer bishop sleeve is not something I've seen.
No, there's something about
That's
with the
very
heels.
Is it
There's
something
about
you
it
would want
you're
to
not
see
used to it.
elsewhere, or do you think that's...
I think it will grow on me.
Yeah, it's like anything, isn't it? Because there's so
You're
many things
very
that we in the past
that
we
is
thought were
done for
strange.
these Americans, so that I can see a million American editors in
It's
that
very
already.
weird.
Yes,
Look.
but you can also see any age in that,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I don't
Yeah.
think he's tying himself down to youth culture in any way. It's very chic, it's very
Do you see
cool
a
at the same time.
65
You just-
years old woman like that?
But I think
with
there's
the
always
jacket, yeah.
there's always going to be
Not
that
with the
root in
shorts.
youth culture.
But you can mix those pieces
yes.
according to who
Yes.
you are and actually all the way through.
I thought the shorts.
No.
But that's why
I like
it's...
the shorts.
It's kind of a brave move to do that
Yeah.
because it's like redefining what's okay. Because there's certain rules
Yeah.
of fashion of what you do and what you don't do, and,
Yeah.
and how much of that is because we're not used to that silhouette.
Yeah.
There's certain things.
I think,
you know, like-
I think people have been
certainly
banging
not
on
used to
for a
that.
long time about the city short, which you wear with a heel, and in real life you just look silly. But
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
prepared to stake a belief on that might work.
Yeah, it's the length of them with the heel. It's tricky for me. Yeah.
That
That's very happy.
Tuxedo.
I like the way the crotch is dropping now.
That's fantastic.
I also
it's
love
much-
the-
Softening.
Stella did
It's
Yeah.
so much more flattering,
Yeah.
isn't it, for the
Yeah.
legs?
And it is, again, you're seeing that commerciality with the accessories, not just the belt with the shoes, and you've got the piece of jewellery I think she's got on her cuff there.
You know what we were saying yesterday, because we were looking at Givenchy, everything
Yeah.
couldn't be copied very well, cheaply,
Yeah.
whereas this could be copied very well.
Oh.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily
Not
very
necessarily
well, but
well,
it could be
but
copied
yeah.
easily.
It's going to be
Whereas
It's very
Givenchy,
s-
because of the craftsmanship,
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah.
be copied well.
No.
And this
But
is very
this-
styled. You almost feel like you could style yourself to get the look, which is
Yeah.
something that you wouldn't be able to do, as you said, with the Givenchy or with
Yeah.
Balenciaga. You know,
Whereas if that
the
was just
piece.
black lycra down at Miss Selfridge,
Yeah, I think
If
I've
they
got
just copied
a
the
high
shape,
street
it would
version
be-
similar to that at home that I can knock up tomorrow.
and is that a good thing for
I think
for
this-
state for
I
a
don't
state
know, but
fashion
I
or
think
not?
it shows there's a little bit groupie appeal. Do you know what I mean?
It's very country, cowboy, the ranch.
I love that. I mean,
lady.
that's his
It's
first dress. It's
weird.
interesting that
But
that's...
if you had me bet on this, I would have lost.
Lucky you didn't.
I wouldn't bet on Hedy doing the cowboy thing.
Interesting.
Cowgirl.
But it's like 60s cowboy. It's like
Yeah.
McCabe and Mrs.
There's
Miller
the lady
or
at
kind
the
of
ranch.
or Cowboy Kate.
Yeah,
but
It's interesting that we say, you know, it could be reproduced because there is this sense with him where it's kind of, it's less about the amazing pieces and the way that it would be with someone with like a brand such as Balenciaga, and it is more about this kind of his gang and his followers and the people that buy into that aesthetic, and they wear the skinny trousers with their own pieces, and it's much more that kind of boy band, you style yourself
The
to
club.
look like the
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think the cut and the fit
Yeah,
is key. You know, you're not going to get that look
Yeah, I
with,
mean, I
with just
don't-
anything.
No.
You see the
Exactly.
tweets, what they say?
I can't read
But
that.
in a
The
way
tweets
there's-
are saying one can see he's designing in Los Angeles. They're not very flattering, the tweets.
But there's
It
a-
look like Rachel Zoe.
Oh dear, that's not good, is it?
But I like that there's an accessibility to it in a way. You
Yeah.
know, it's nice to because people love his aesthetic, and part of the success of Dior Homme was it completely across the high street. You know, you saw
Yeah.
every young man in Britain and across the world dressing like that.
Yeah.
I think it's nice that he's kind of nodded to that with his women's wear. That like
Oh, yeah.
young girls can.
Well, I
copy
think
it.
everybody's been waiting for him to officially do women's wear for ages. So yeah, these
Nice.
pants are great, and I like the way he's mixing the layers of fabrics.
Is that
Is that a cape?
It's like a
leather
cape. It
shirt?
looks like a cape shirt. Yeah, exactly. It's like.
Is it lace?
Yeah, this is lace. This is sheer, but it looks like it's all kind of
Sorry.
one.
Is it rubberized lace or just plain?
I think it's
lace?
just plain
So
lace.
it's- yeah.
Oh, I should have gone to Spexo.
And there's the Russian sleeve.
It's a little bit witchy,
General.
this one, isn't it? A bit witchy with the hat.
Yeah.
Kind
It's
of.
weird.
I know we were saying
Very
it
weird.
doesn't really matter, but this doesn't look to me like a spring.
It will grow on me, as I
spring-summer.
said before.
No, it really
No.
doesn't look like a spring
It's
summer.
yeah. I mean that's part of his charm, I guess. He doesn't really care for seasons or seasonal
Yeah.
dressing. Maybe
Yeah.
it's about classics or
That's
it's about
slightly.
buying into a look.
Mm.
But I am surprised.
It's also a nighttime collection in a way, which I
Mm,
think is
very
really
much,
cool because
yeah.
he is a nighttime designer.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
these girls are going to go off and go out. And
That's a
probably
bit
get home
Halloween, that one.
It's a
It is
bit
a bit.
Halloween
Yeah.
meets
It's
It's not
Robin
been my
Scott.
favourite look.
Yeah, I
Don't
can
you think
imagine.
so?
I can imagine.
Bit Halloween meets
I can
Robin
imagine
Scott.
Heidi Klum in that one.
Yeah, it's not.
You know Heidi Klum on Halloween?
Yeah.
I love it.
Very,
Sorry.
very LA.
She loves
Very LA,
Oh, we're back to
yeah.
I'll refresh though because I think we're getting a bit stuck.
Let's look number
Yeah, that's
one.
the opening look.
I
Now Fashion Site is down, which I'm hoping is a reference to Saint Laurent and how popular it's been.
Yeah, maybe it's
caused
just
them
got
to
so many
crash.
that it's crashed.
So I don't know if we'll have to have a
The
look.
How
tweets
about
are
on your
hilarious.
Instagram deck? Have you got photos in from people in the
can have a
front
look.
row?
Yeah, but they're really poor quality. I think what we might do is have a break and then continue when we've got all the imagery in, because nowhere's got the imagery yet.
That's a shame.
Should we have a little pause?
We'll have a little
We'll have a cup of
pause.
tea.
See you later.
And we're back. We now have all our imagery in. So let's have a continued flick through the collection. So this is the last
where
look
we
we
got
were at,
to, yeah.
we're continuing with the... But it's very commercial, you know, a classic biker jacket, you know, it's not kind of not revolutionising much.
Yeah, I'm almost feeling like it's really great retail. You know, when you get these great retail shops that make things very well, but it's not what I expect from a designer. I expect it, so maybe I'm wrong. I kind of assume a designer is going to, you know, appreciate heritage and everything else, but it's their job in a sense. I'm expecting them to create a new line, a new way of looking at things.
But maybe it's
I'm not feeling that's so new.
Maybe it's what we were saying about designers sort of getting away from themes and concepts and just making
wearable clothes,
things that you can buy. You know, basically making retail. There isn't. I don't feel like there's a story behind this collection yet. We obviously haven't seen all of it. But
Well, I think we have to see it all. But Hedy has a precise image on people he likes.
Yeah.
You know, he always casted people in the street because that's how, and he cannot get away from that. So he mixed a little bit of Saint Laurent, you know, signs, but that's what it is. Well, this is quite interesting, I think. So he's using the fabrics of the season, you know, the theme of the season, but then it's
been said on Twitter that the models he used are all cast from the internet, and he's used...
Really? I've not recognised any faces.
No, exactly. And apparently he's used Lily McHenry, so Christine McHenry's daughter, which is quite interesting. It's interesting what you say about it being kind of like this idea of retail and something that people want to buy, because when we had Susanna Franklin, she was talking about Balenciaga, and she said the success of that is that it is stuff you want to buy, it's stuff you immediately want to wear, but it's always new. And I think that's one thing that...
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I think people have done that in the past. I mean, you know, Dior's new look wasn't that successful. It was a completely revolutionary shape. And that, I guess that's what I'm expecting. Yeah. I mean, I'm being quite hard on him, but just this has been the show everyone has been waiting for.
Yeah.
You know,
it doesn't move mountains.
Can we see more?
Let's see more.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
I mean, it's lovely,
commercial.
but
there's no denying it's beautiful, but
I mean, that's very Notting Hill girl, you know, isn't it?
There's just, it all seems a bit familiar. I think that's the thing that's striking. And that could be a good thing in many ways, but in a way, you do feel like you've seen this look before and not on another runway, kind of everywhere, which maybe.
Yeah, maybe you've seen it before, but he is also obliterating what's gone before. You know, you wouldn't confuse this with Stefano.
No, I really dislike that. I dislike that.
With others, yes.
No, but with others.
That's so boho chic.
It's very racist.
It's boho chic.
I'm trying to think, when did he leave Dior Homme? Was it
2007?
Yeah. I feel like some of these looks were what I was wearing then.
No, I think
that's maybe he just hasn't.
Right. It's very 10 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's very kind of, you know, like Kate in that time.
Exactly. That's what I mean. A bit of going down to Veronica's in Holland Park and finding that and going out. Yeah.
But do women
Virginia's. I knew it began with V.
Do women identify with dressing in that kind of way, like dressing like a rock chick, dressing like a boho guy? I don't know if that's...
It's become a bit of a cliche
now
because it's been going for so long.
Exactly.
Because performance was a long time ago. We've all seen the video.
Yeah.
You know, so there's only so long you can pretend to be Brian Jones's girlfriend.
Yeah. It's not really about tribes anymore, is it? Because I feel like you can mix pieces in a way that isn't... You don't have to be total look. You don't have to be one trend. It's more about blending things, being a bit of a chameleon, maybe.
Yeah, I think completely.
But it is quite schizophrenic, the way it's going from era to era and from flouncing to
Exactly.
It's like
I was going to say, it's like an anthology of what has been fashion in the past 10 years.
Yeah, you're right,
And different stylists. For me, it reminds me of different stylists that have been important, actually. You just said it. I had it here and I couldn't say. Do you think it's deliberate?
I don't know. I mean, maybe at the end it will all become a bit apparent, but it is sort of a bit greatest hits at the moment.
It is a little bit.
It's the greatest hits of the rock star's girlfriends. Isn't it? Like that last one was like, I don't know, like a sort of heavy metal chick girl, you know.
Very different than this one, though.
Yeah.
But there's no, maybe me not getting it, but there's no kind of undertone that's hitting me. You know, you always get the sense with the great collections that there's something more. You know, there's something that's kind of tied this together. There's something that's been in that research, this idea, and it can be just one idea or multiple ideas. Whereas with this, it doesn't feel like there's any kind of there's no life behind those clothes. And
there's no interpretation to them. It's sort of what Kay was saying. They're just pieces. They feel like pieces, I think. They don't feel like...
Maybe he's
mean
overthought it or something like that, or...
Because he's obviously going towards something. I'd love to know what he's...
it can be by
towards.
chance. This is quite Saint Laurent. This is quite Monsieur Saint Laurent.
It'd also be interesting to see, obviously jumping forward, what he'd pick out as the key looks for the advertising, you know.
Well, that's what's interesting. You think there's always those star looks, you know, the one that symbolises a collection. It's hard to see, because it could be that safari look we saw right at the start and that kind of, that brownie suede, or it could be this, which is, it seems like polar opposite types of collections. And I think...
But maybe it could just be the very first look that we saw, which was that cropped boxy jacket, the slim fit trousers. Maybe that's what he wants. That's his statement. The rest of it is sort of background noise.
That's interesting,
What was that tweet there? Susie and Kathy better.
Well,
Susie and Kathy.
It all seems familiar.
It will come back.
Still moving slide. Just like polar opposite there, you've got kind of a
cool,
but very typical. I see that woman all the time. I've seen that woman a lot.
I mean, it's
in real life, no?
It is a little schizophrenic at the moment.
But then I think people said that about Raf as well. You know,
but then again, people's wardrobes are quite schizophrenic. You know, what you need clothes for is quite a varied situation.
But should a designer's collection, especially their first collection in a house, be about people's wardrobes?
But then again, maybe he's trying to, as I said, obliterate everything, but also he's throwing out a few ideas and seeing which rock chick goes for him, like whether it's
that's a bit harsh, no? Do you think so?
I don't know. I mean,
well, I hope not, but...
No, but he's got a lot of people to appeal to in this collection. So
but you can't think like that if you're Marks and Spencer's. You have to think like that. You know what I mean?
Look at this.
Because if you please everyone, you please no one at that level.
Pete Doherty is in a way that she's.
It is a bit, and sort of credit to him maybe for that, because everyone else has completely abandoned that as, you know, that kind of paradigm of what not to do. That kind of boho noughties look, you know, that's like a total fashion absolutely.
And that kind of aspirational way of dressing, where you dress like the girl you want to be, you know, you dress like that. The cool girl that's going out with
that's very English. Sorry, since I'm not English, I see that boho Sienna Miller thing.
We've moved away from that
English.
so much.
I mean, nobody else in the world
well, clearly Paris
did
now.
that, but now it's Eddie a little bit.
But it is interesting that polar opposite.
I don't like that.
I don't see that as relevant to how women dress. You know, I think women want to look strong and intelligent.
Is it Stevie Nicks?
I was about to say Stevie
Nicks.
But it's Stevie Nicks not in the good years. Sorry, it's
weird, isn't it?
Prescription drug era.
It's weird how everything so far was so empowering and all about power and making the women the powerful woman. And in New York, you know, if you remember the Jason Wu and the Beckham shows we did, that was very strong shapes. And then we had strong colours in London. And I mean, he is doing something totally different, but I don't know whether he's got a strength or an effortlessness.
No, I think there isn't an effortlessness. It's very styled and very kind of.
Well, I think to see this collection, I mean, with the music and the movement, it's completely different. I mean, it's very difficult for us. There are some extraordinary pieces, and there are some amazing things. What bothers me a little bit, it's the styling, actually. Because the more I think about it, the more I think
if you strip back the hat,
if you strip something back, if you took something away, you're right. There's been a few times I just wanted to get the hat off, take the hair up, and away from the so I can see
the pieces in a different way.
But this is great. This is great.
And
you'll see this on a red carpet, I think.
I like that dress.
But you want that hat gone. You want
the hat gone. You wouldn't wear the
clothes.
But that's the styling. Who cares? Because then you do what you want with it.
I think you'll see that.
It feels a bit editorial ready. You know, it feels like he's made it.
It looks a little bit like fashion spreads.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. Like the cowboy girl or the chic.
Maybe he's doing it with a photographer's eye, not a designer's eye.
But actually, if you're a photographer, you would take. I'm telling you, being somebody who lives, I've lived my life on a set. That hair would bug me, and I'd probably be being really naughty and doing something very, very bad and saying, I think the hair should go back. And you know, you're not supposed
the
to
great
do that
collections we've seen, the hair's just been like that beautiful low bun we saw yesterday. You know,
something's got to give.
But that's not Heddy's woman. I mean, Heddy's woman is a hippie.
as a hippie.
A rich
But
hippie.
maybe when
Well, then
we
he's
see
done
these
rock and
moving,
roll.
Then
it
he's
will
done it
kind
well
of
then,
have
I
a
suppose.
different like lux to it, or
But those sheer shirts are beautiful.
yeah,
Yeah.
There are pieces that are incredible.
It's beautiful.
I'm thrilled I wore mine tonight.
Yeah,
You're very on
A
trend.
real what?
and
I'm
that's
thrilled I wore
beautiful. But
mine.
you want to strip off the necklace, you want to tie up the hair, and you want to take off the hat, and then that would be stunning.
But also, it's just, I'm sorry, but that dress is not new to me,
no, it's not new.
is it?
But then that's kind of maybe
It's a reinterpretation of the kaftan.
Yeah, the Miu Miu. But
I've seen some color. Can we? I know I'm.
yeah. Let's
Skip.
flip through.
I mean,
Back
that's
to
a brilliant proportion. The waists and the
Yeah.
proportion there is nice.
Yeah, but I want that sweatshirt. Anyway,
That's quite a nice dress.
Dresses like that are difficult, I think, because they always look
Very.
great on a catwalk.
But then try
and
to wear
if
it.
you wear
You
it
need
in
to be
real
very
life,
tall,
you look
don't
like
you?
a
And
bit of
not
a
be
village
6 foot.
idiot. No,
Yeah.
a bit kind of a bit hippie and a bit.
No, I think you're right.
You have to be very
There's
tall.
a lot of this that is,
Very
it works on a gorgeous, tall, skinny girl,
Yeah.
which is
But
and it's
very tall and very.
Very
skinny.
tall.
But it's interesting because the clothes don't strike you as being sort of like elitist or inaccessible in any way, but when you actually do look at them, and you're right, if you put that on a girl who isn't 6 foot, size
But
6.
it's not so much about frame or size or proportion. It's just that sort of, well, boho, I guess, but that sort of Aussie Clark, late 70s sort of styling. It's difficult for life. Modern life doesn't necessitate wearing a dress like that, and you just look a bit funny when you're wearing one. Getting on a bus in a dress like that, people assume you're sensitive.
Aussie Clark's quite wearable because of the
Yeah,
cut
I
bias
like
thing. I think
Aussie.
it makes women's bodies look lovely.
Honestly,
He made
No,
them
no,
quite
it's
small,
not. I'm not
but-
talking about
yeah.
the shape or
But
how
I
it makes your
disagree
body look, but it's just
on
about
this one.
how impractical.
why
it
Yeah,
is.
that's what the
disagree?
length. Yes.
I a little bit disagree because that's a style. I mean,
Style
if
is not
that
about
becomes
practicality, I suppose.
the most photographed dress on any magazine and in the advertising, you don't look weird. You look fantastic. And you see what I mean? It's all about what you use. I think what Hedi's doing here, it's something that we were not expecting.
You're
And
definitely
it's
right.
something that our eye, after 3 weeks of fashion, is completely not used
Yeah.
to. And so we're more in shock. But actually,
He's
that's
probably
quite genius.
really
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
maybe that is where the newness comes from.
And I'm not disagreeing. I mean, what you say is true, but it's quite true for every collection. I mean, we've been in this job for many years. We've seen collection, and my God, it looks amazing. Even the little jeans and T-shirt, and then you try it on, and even if you're quite slim and whatever, you're like, oh, I look like an idiot. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Maybe
and I
it's
think
just
this dress, it's easier.
dresses like that
than
are my
the
bugbear then in that case, because I just think they always look ridiculous. That's
I mean, it's quite covered. It's not easy. But look
I
at
don't,
this.
I don't think anyone
This
can
is
argue
Kate
that that
Moss.
wouldn't look ridiculous.
Kate
if you
Moss.
wore
Or
that.
Karen Nelson.
Yeah.
Is that a skirt?
Yeah, it's a
so,
leather
yeah.
skirt which has got
With
these studs in it, one with a
studded.
sheer
But look at the
pussy
beauty of the
blow
jacket.
blouse, and then
But
the
he's
jacket.
using he's taking the safari cut and punching the leather with the studs to echo that line.
I do.
It's
I like
ranch.
these
It's
pieces.
Arizona riding for me
Yeah.
more than safari. You know?
Yeah,
It's more west,
more Western.
the big west than
Wild
Africa.
West.
But these pieces where it's what we said right at the beginning, where he's merging, his signature Eddie with something very signature Saint Laurent. I think there is an interest in that, and there's something
Yeah,
quite
definitely.
playful and
Absolutely.
intriguing. And I wish, in a way, we'd seen more of that.
Absolutely.
That's very Saint Laurent.
Mm.
I bet that swings beautifully as she
Mm.
walks.
Again, that's a real surprise because that to me is it's beautiful, but it's very bourgeois compared to everything else that we've
Yeah.
seen. It's very sort of uptown,
There's a
isn't it?
prim.
But Kate
yeah.
Well,
Moss
it's
would
interesting
still
that
wear
it'd be
that when
thrown in.
she's.
But
Kate
not
Moss
the
would still
skinny
wear that when she's going off
trousers.
to, if she's been photographed having a rough night, that's what she would turn up in
Yeah.
for paparazzi the
Maybe,
next
yeah,
day.
you're right.
It's still
Yeah.
rock chick
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
But
There's
rock
also-
chick
there's-
on,
It
post
is all
when
But
she's
that's
Yeah.
what
putting
he's
herself
about.
together.
He loves his musicians. It's what he's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
been. And in a way,
No, that's fine. That's
Might not be
great.
found
But
in
yeah,
the
but it's
collections,
just
but-
I was would have.
There's a
thought.
real
Yeah.
vintage feel to quite a lot of them, though,
Yeah.
isn't there? So,
Mm.
and that's interesting because I don't know what you were expecting, but I thought it would be very, very modern.
no,
I wasn't expecting nostalgia.
I think I was.
expecting
I would think I
vintage.
was as well. Yeah.
And I feel like that vogue for vintage, it has kind of moved away. I think people buy vintage just as much now, but I don't think vintage as a kind of a thing or a moment really exists anymore, in the way that it did with that kind of Kate Moss.
Yeah, I mean, I
Huge
buy
bubble.
vintage everything just because it's
Mm.
the best value for money.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spend all my money on that. I'd rather buy a new bathroom.
Yeah.
But so vintage.
Carry on.
I like that he's nodding to kind of the whole history of the house, not just Saint Laurent himself, but also he is nodding to kind of the other designers who've been there anyway, perhaps not Stefano, but I think there's something...
Well, maybe Stefano in the capes, I think.
Yeah. Oh, true.
The only leitmotif is the hat, actually. See, there's the hat.
Yeah. And this big belted waist keeps coming.
That would look gorgeous on a red carpet though, when you can see this collection moving and filtering, whether it is to the high street. I think you could see Laura doing an excellent copy.
I keep trying to do this thing to myself, like imagine if that had the hair and makeup in my head would work for that outfit, and there was something fluid.
How would you have done the hair?
Well, if I see something like that, I need to see neck and I need to see head, and not necessarily lips, because that would be too glamorous and elegant for his woman. I think it's almost more the hair, and
I think it needs to be scraped back in a little shining bun,
something like that, And then it would really make everything that you've been saying about the clothes, I think, might work. Then I think it's seeing it all together. For me, it's bad styling. It makes me less believe.
But yet I think that the fact that the hair is long and loose, that's the modernity. If you put the little bun, then it's not relevant for Hedy.
No, I know what you're saying.
I think it's the hat that bothers us more.
Yeah.
Don't you think so?
But I think the problem with the hair is even more than the hat. You're losing some of the absolute beauty of those clothing, because it's making us easy to say I've seen that look before, because it's easy to imagine it with a girl in the street with the long hair, whereas you miss some of the kind of amazing craftsmanship that will have gone into it, because you've got that pedestrian element to it.
Is it beading?
Yeah, it's got beading, I think it's kind of a PK beading, and then you've got that big bow.
Yeah.
And it looks like it is completely cut away, because you can see it's
probably it's probably absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I just think there's a time and a place for that kind of woman. I don't know. I'm not convinced of the hair.
I mean, it's interesting because I know it's a totally different show. The Marc Jacobs show, they stormed out in 6 minutes, and here we are. Maybe we're pouring over it. Maybe it's meant to be like a flick book where you go blah, and they've come out marching at 100 miles per hour, and you don't.
I think in a way that would feel more.
Yeah, maybe we're minuting on things too much.
Wow.
Crumbs.
I can't help but think if it was really major, we'd be saying it was major.
Yeah.
We'd know it was incredible. I think, we don't want to get imprisoning clothes about it, because obviously he is a brilliantly stylish man, clearly. But I'm just wondering if we're making excuses for him.
But maybe also, maybe this is the collection where he needs to explore everything and sort of make his declaration of where he's going to go.
But I think with a great collection, from the first look, it moves you. There's always something.
Yeah, we should be freaking
but
out.
But it's so different to Raf, Jill Sander, the Givenchy show we saw yesterday. And maybe it's like Mimma said, maybe it's that it's so different to all the other things. It is going to stand out this season, because this is totally out there on its own.
But Jill Sanders' return, her collection, I think, as much as minimalism is really having this moment, I think it did stand out because the severity of that was different to what we see with
but the severity and the sharp lines that we've seen so far against this boho-ness is...
But from Jill's first look, there was something to that. And every look that came out almost built on it, whereas I feel here, rather than it being kind of like that crescendo, it's kind of this, which maybe it'll grow on us, maybe you're right, maybe it's his moment of kind of working out what he's going to do, but it doesn't feel like you're having that kind of smooth, wow, this is a statement, and more of a kind of exploration.
But maybe it's because he decided to make his statement with something as soft as boho, that it's hard to build up the crescendo that you need.
But that's funny, isn't it? Because I would put him in the sort of fashion absolutist camp. And this is not a trend that
See, I would have grouped him with the Raf Givenchy
style. My problem is that these clothes that we're seeing, they could be the same of the first look, just styled differently. And that's a little bit my problem. I mean, that skinny trousers or jeans, you see what I mean? That's where I see more styling and it's weird because this is Hedi Slimane.
Yeah.
I can't
It's
help
such a
but
strong statement before.
And I can't help but think that isn't there a really fresh, new, exciting way to show boho? If we're going to go, okay, well, it's boho, we love the Kate Moss aesthetic, Brian Jones' girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. Imagine being somebody who could reinterpret that, even if it was just the styling for the catwalk. So we were like, oh my God, I never knew I could like boho chic again. So soon after it was just... You know, it's still a little pedestrian to me. You know, that's what I'm picking up. If I didn't know that this was
such a
Saint Laurent, if I saw this woman, would you be like staring at her on the street going, oh my God, did you see that girl's outfit? And I think that's what, if that's not doing that for you, we can't be seduced into the fact that this is live.
There's nothing really recognisable.
If that girl's walking down the street, you're going, oh my God, did you see that girl? She's wearing that. Where she put that together? And I think, oh my God, you should be, you know, like yesterday watching Givenchy, it was different. If I saw a girl wearing one of those outfits
this morning with the first 4 dresses.
You
will be the statement
because
everybody will recognise them. You know, the dresses.
That girl was walking along the street, but that girl, I've seen her for 15 years.
And you wouldn't also, I think one thing that's striking is you wouldn't know that it was Eddie, I think, in a way. If you saw that lip, you wouldn't. There's nothing that's kind of wow enough about it in a sense. You know, it's just a beautifully cut pair of black trousers. I think what's interesting about Dior Homme is you always knew it was Dior Homme, whereas with this, there's that sense of I've seen this before, and there's not that signature kind of wow piece.
Carry on clicking in case we get.
Someone says here, look, a bit too Stevie Nicks, Rachel Zoe. There's no edge.
Wow.
We are getting. Sorry. Let's go back.
No, I'm into Stevie Nicks and not Rachel Zoe, but Stevie Nicks.
Is that a fur?
Yeah, that looks like a fur, which is, and it's worn with a skinny trouser. That's not a skirt. I don't know how well you can see that with the light, and then the red.
Red.
To look.
Haven't we seen that one?
No.
But that was very similar. Isn't that the first one?
Very similar.
It's
No,
very similar to the
it's
first
not the same. That's the model that opened.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like all those pendants.
I like the accessories.
The long dresses are beautiful.
The colour is beautiful
Very
as
beautiful.
well.
That's
very
beautiful.
And that's very Saint Laurent as well. Yeah.
I would have got rid of the pale blue, just in the context it was. Love that. Oh.
And there he is.
Can we see the evening looks again? Just go through from the reds.
I must say the finale is quite
stunning. This part has got really.
And it looks like they were coming up.
Imagine all them
quick
together. That's
succession.
quite amazing.
That would be. That's the more interesting side of boho
beautiful.
chic to me. That's a little bit of a moving
That's
on
new,
from it.
And you can see that they've come out incredibly quickly
Yeah.
by the fact that you can see them all.
It's boho because of the hair and the hat, but if you see it on Tilda Swinton, then it's not boho. You see what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know. I just think
it's the styling,
the looseness of the
and all the
dresses.
pendants and
What are our?
That's amazing.
What do you think people will take from this then? What do you think I know it's very hard to predict, but what do you think we all said it's not what we were expecting.
I think it's something you're going to need to sort of, if you were there writing a review, I think you'd need to filter that for a while, because that was not what anybody was expecting, not that anybody can expect something.
You see yourself quoted, it's a bit meta, isn't it?
Sorry, Camilla, sorry.
You know, I don't think it was what anybody was expecting. Do you, Harriet? I mean...
No, it certainly wasn't what I was expecting.
I mean, I think people had mentally prepared themselves for a reinvention of the smoking, the tuxedo, the sharp
What's
pants.
weird
is
that they did get a version of that.
Yeah,
in
they
the
got what they
separates,
wished
there
for.
is a version of each of those pieces that will be available, and I'm sure will sell very well. And actually the strength of this collection is that it will be shot in myriad ways that reflect the sort of almost the schizophrenia of it as a show. I think what's difficult is coming to a judgment on the entire collection having watched the show, because it doesn't necessarily work as a show. It works as a coherent range of pieces that will be in a shop next to each other, or in a magazine next to each other on a page. But when they're all done up head to toe, I don't really know what I think. I like it. I like the end looks a lot.
Yeah, I thought the end was strong.
But the end is strong because it feels coherent.
Yeah. I think the beginning 3 looks were strong, the end was strong, and then I think he got a bit muddled in the middle.
think that's a nice note to end on. He got muddled in the middle just as we got muddled in the middle with our lack of imagery.
But maybe we
it's very apt.
Maybe we saw it too slowly. I don't know, but
I'm sure I would like to call someone who was there and is there a possibility to see it in movement with the music and
no.
it's not filmed at all, right?
Which I think is strange because you would have expected him to have kind of made that. Because I think what struck me with it is kind of taken from the collection is when he relaunched his website, when he did the new store, when he changed the name, there was this push of modernity and of moving forward. And I think the problem I have with it, and in a sense the fact it wasn't live streamed, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
No. And I didn't see that kind of whoosh of pace that we've had from
I'm sure he had the music and he had, I was reading a tweet where they're saying the whole staff is in jeans and t-shirts, which at Saint Laurent you had the cravate rouge and everybody dressed up to the nines. So, you know, he put all that around for sure. I'm sure he doesn't have the typical golden chairs, you know. But it's a little bit of a pity we didn't have the whole atmosphere. It's true that looking at the clothes like this, you don't know what to think. The pieces are beautiful, the styling was a little bit surprising.
We're much better judges maybe though, because if the collection itself is really great, you still feel it even when you're here. Without music, without ambience.
You're right.
So you know what? If I could be seduced by
collection
many
itself
things, that's the
is
nature of
beautiful.
advertising, isn't it? So
It's I'm sure it's the styling.
yeah, that definitely.
Which,
It's the styling, and there is a little bit too much repetition. Maybe it could have 40 look instead of 50. How many?
I think that's a really interesting
54.
point. You make the fact that, you know, you can strip away the music, you can strip away the style, you can strip away the hair and makeup, almost
There is no
everything.
seduction,
And if there's
your
it's
lips left
amazing,
with
you know
it,
it's amazing.
It's true.
And also if that girl walks down the street, would you go, oh my god,
Yeah, and I
I
did.
want to.
I think a bit like the designs, the girl won't have that conviction when she wears it.
Yeah. It's funny because the conviction is there in the name change and the, you know, the real kind of starkness of the new website and of the imagery that he's released before this. And that was so strong because it was so kind of simple and one concept. And this is
so
everything
clean.
at once. It takes away from the message that he has previously been giving out.
I'm sure it'll be commercial though.
Yeah,
I
mean,
imagine
I'm
lots
sure,
of women
for
buying
sure.
this because they've already been wearing it.
Yeah.
So
maybe
that's a sure.
true.
That's
You know,
a
we
sure
don't want
thing,
something
isn't it?
new. We want what we already have again. Maybe that's.
Well, it won't harm.
Either way, should we give him a respectful
Yes,
round of
exactly.
applause?
Thank you.